everybody, and welcome to the podcast. My name is Gerard Bissett, author of The Ultimate Survival Guide for College Success and forthcoming book, How to Become the Most Successful Millennial in Your Organization. Welcome to another episode of the podcast. Today I'm joined by a very special guest. His name is Brian Scrone. Brian is a proud father, real estate entrepreneur, and more recently, author of What Matters Most. Brian, how you doing?
Hey, how you going, mate? Thanks for having me.
Well, Brian joins us from sunny Florida, so I'm joining you from Dublin, Ireland, but he's all the way out in Florida right now. So why don't we tell everybody, Brian, a little bit about who you are and what it is you do?
Yeah, thank you. Well, first of all, thanks for the opportunity, Jared, to share with you and your community. Where do I start? Boy. A little bit of background. I grew up in the Northeast, about a half hour outside of New York City and Wall Street, which is a pretty fast and furious environment. And loving family. I had a Sicilian father, an Irish mother. Always surrounded by lots of family and friends. But I found myself getting in a lot of trouble, which I go into in the book, which maybe you and I will talk about a little bit later in the interview. When I turned 13. Completely went off the rails, started getting myself in all kinds of trouble, and from about 13 to about 23, just a whole lot of trouble that sent me into a pretty dark, deep place in my life. But then I, fortunately, thank God, worked myself out of that, and using this system that I call the 5 Fs, which we can talk about later. But I feel very blessed. I live in Florida. I can walk to the beach. I had a surf this morning. I have a beautiful wife and 2 healthy, happy boys that are 3 and 5 years old. And, I always use this saying. I was having a conversation with my cousin, who's a real successful entrepreneur, producer out in Los Angeles and New York. And we were just talking. I said, "How you doing?" He said, "You know what, cuz I got champagne problems." And I thought, that's a really interesting saying. I've never heard that before. And what he was meaning, and I totally agree, is I feel so blessed where I live. The quality of life we're afforded here in Florida, especially, and been blessed with a couple of really successful businesses and surrounded by good family and friends. I'm healthy, so I really got no complaints, Jared, to be honest with you. I don't want to sound like I live in a bubble and every day is perfect, because that would be bullshit. But at the end of the day, I think where you focus your energy is what you're going to get more of. So I'm always pretty conscious of trying to focus on what I got instead of what I don't have.
Well, that's probably something I live by myself as well, Brian. I like that analogy, champagne problems, huh?
Yeah.
A more Irish analogy is that we'd have Guinness problems.
I love it, yeah.
So tell me, so at 23 years old, what was the shift? What made you realize that you have to turn your life around?
Yeah, and so I don't want to start the interview with negativity, and to be honest with you, it's not negative. It's just something that I had happen in my life. 13 to 23, I started drinking, doing drugs. I started sleeping around with a lot of women. Hopefully, I'm not scaring anyone on your interview.
There's nothing wrong with that, Brian.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Get up, you pup.
Yeah. Nothing wrong with it until you start selling drugs and getting arrested and getting women pregnant that you're not in love with, and actually all of that culminated in 2 abortions. So you asked me what happened when I was about 23. It was about when I was actually 21 years old, a 6-month time frame of getting a couple different girls pregnant in 2 girls that I was not in love with, and they ended in abortion. And you sound like you're Irish, and you sound like, I'm assuming you're Catholic.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So you know that abortion and Catholicism do not go hand in hand.
Yeah, that's for sure.
So yeah, look, I can laugh about it now, and it was a really deep, dark time in my life. But you asked the question, so I'm going to be transparent with you. Those events around when I was 21 years old is rock bottom for me. Shit hit the fan, and I had the cops come into my house and arrest me for drugs. At the time, I was selling a lot of drugs. It was just a shitty time in my life. Mm-hmm. I take full responsibility for it. I caused all of it. But those abortions really were sort of the icing on the cake, as we like to say, for me, just hitting rock bottom. And through that, it became either a crisis or an opportunity. For a while there, Jared, to be honest with you, it was a crisis. I was depressed. I was not wanting to face the world and live and share all my deep, dark secrets. But I started reaching out for help, which I think is a big takeaway for the listeners. Always ask for help. I hired a mentor. He was a business mentor when I hired him, but he became a life mentor, just a real solid family guy, very extremely successful. His name is Keith Cunningham, and he actually introduced me to this thing called the 5Fs.
Oh wow, I know Keith Cunningham. He's the guy Tony Robbins goes to for business mastery.
Exactly.
Yes,
yeah. Have you met him?
yeah. I haven't met Keith, but I seen him speak here in Dublin when he was here.
Awesome. Yeah, phenomenal human being.
Texas man.
What's that?
He's a Texas guy.
Yeah, big old Texas boy. But he's the one that introduced me to this thing called the 5Fs, which, to take the guesswork out of it, the 5Fs are faith, fitness, family, friends, and finance. And he said that about 20 years ago to me, Jared, and it sort of went in one ear and out the other, to be honest with you, the first time I heard it. Mm-hmm. But you know how when you hear things, you write them down and then you come back to them when you need to in life.
Yes.
So I came back to them when I needed to, and I've started applying those 5 relationships. And I think the biggest takeaway from the book is before we worry about what's next, let's figure out what's important. You're a young millennial. Sounds like you're very successful. So we got a lot of shit on our plate, right? I mean, there's so much to do in a day. We all got the same 16 waking hours in the day. So my takeaway or messaging in my book, what matters most is, well, if it's an even playing field and we all have this same 24 hours in a day, which no one can argue, right? Everyone's got the same time. What are we doing with that time? So the takeaway is before we worry about what's next, let's figure out what's important for you. And then once you're crystal clear on your priorities, you can then start to invest your time accordingly around these 5Fs. So for me, I wake up every day, I think about, okay, where's my priorities today and how am I going to invest my time? Because you and I and the president of Ireland and the homeless guy living under the bridge in Florida all got the same 16 waking hours. Mm-hmm. So I look at that very seriously. I don't take it for granted, and I really try to be very cognizant of how I'm investing my time. And that all ties back to these 5 relationships.
That's something funny you should say that, because people look at me, and they say, you know what, you're so young, you're 21 and whatever. But I look at that as, time is running out. Because in the blink of an eye, 5 years can go by like that. So I want to really focus my time now on and activities that add value to my life. So that's interesting that you say that. So tell me about the book and how it came into fruition, and was it hard? Was it writing this book? Was it an emotional experience? Did you find that it brought up things maybe you weren't comfortable with? Were you pushing the comfort zone writing this book?
I was blasting the comfort zone throughout the whole front end of the book. I just aired all of my dirty laundry, like I just did to you in the beginning of this interview, but in much greater detail, obviously. And I found, your question is how was writing the book? I got to be honest with you, it was completely healing and cathartic. It was a really fun creative process. I am a big fan of leverage and delegation. I'm running a couple of pretty good sized businesses, so I'm always looking for really smart people that have really good skill sets. So I actually brought in. He's a mutual friend of actually Philip McKernan, who brought us together. His name is Xander Robertson, and he started out as my ghostwriter, and he became very quickly my co-author. I said in the middle of the project, I said, look, Xander, I love working with you. This is going really good. He was interviewing me and helping me write. And I said, but I feel out of integrity just calling you a ghostwriter and no one knowing, who's helping me put my thoughts to paper. So It became a really, really fun, creative, engaging, and again, using Xander's skill set. I mean, he's got a phenomenal skill set for writing. It's definitely my voice and my story and my words. But bringing him in was an eye-opener for me. I plan on writing a series of books around the 5Fs. So here's the book. It's called The 5Fs. It's called What Matters Most, Finding Your Focus with the 5Fs. So my plan is to take each one of those 5 relationships, faith, fitness, family, friends, and finance, and do a follow-up series around this book, hyper-focusing on each one of the 5Fs as its own freestanding book. So it's almost like the chicken soup. I'm sure you've heard of chicken soup.
Yeah.
So I will never write a book by myself. I told myself that after I wrote this first book, and I feel really blessed. The book was just released last week, and I'm getting really good feedback and success. I woke up yesterday to some really nice surprises that it was #1 in a couple categories on Amazon in Canada, which I don't even live in Canada, but I have a really good network there. Yeah, and #1 and #2 in America, which obviously America is a very big market. So I'm actually absolutely humbled and shocked by it. But I think what it comes down to is getting out of my own way, putting my ego aside, asking for help. The help of Xander and a huge team that I had helping me write the book, the support and love of my wife, my children, my family, and then getting the book out there. Writing the book's one thing. Getting the book out there is a whole nother conversation.
Yes.
You're an author, so I'm singing to the choir here. Writing the book is like having a baby, and then you got to feed the baby, give the baby milk and change the diapers, and or otherwise it's going to die very quickly. So I'm in the middle of having the baby and feel really blessed. Getting a lot of good feedback. Can't wait to share the book with your community. It is, we can talk about this later, but right now I'm running a promo. It's free on Amazon. So for your community, it's free until Friday. And then after that, it goes back to normal sales. But just really, really excited, Jared, to get my message out there. Front half of the book is all of basically my memoir and all the shit that I got myself into that I started to elaborate on earlier. And then the back half of the book is introducing these 5 relationships, these 5 critical, what I believe to be universal and timeless relationships, and giving the reader and the viewer some really cool, simple, effective tools that they can start using immediately and use every day for the rest of their life. I'm a big fan of get shit done. And I only ever want to speak or teach or share from experience. So all of the tools in the book are directly things that I'm using that I got from mentors like Keith Cunningham, that I put my own tweak on or I created myself. And the goal is to get it in the hands of many people as possible and share it and help as many people as possible.
Oh, that's amazing. So let's, as we're approaching the midpoint of the interview, okay?
Yeah.
Let's rip the piss out of our friend Philip McKernan.
Well, you know he's from Louisiana, and that whole bullshit accent thing is fake, right?
Well,
did you know he was from South America?
It's better from being from County Cork. Philip, if you're listening to this, I don't really know you personally. We've recorded a podcast together. I'm very sorry for ripping the piss. It's only a bit of crack.
Listen, I'm not sorry, and I do know him well. I've traveled around the world with him. That guy has slept in my bed before. I actually, not with me.
Oh.
But yeah, no, we're good mates. He wrote the foreword to the book. Wrote a really, really kind, phenomenal foreword to the book, which I'm excited to share with everyone it's the first part of the book, so it's the first thing they'll read is from my Irish friend from Louisiana.
Oh, holy Lord. Good old Irish Louisianan. So, I suppose, tell me about your experience with entrepreneurship and how did that really come into fruition?
Yeah. So my background is in real estate investments. It has been not since day one. I sold drugs, as I told you. That was my first experience. My first job, when I started to learn about money and the value of money was when I was 10 years old, working in the back of a family deli, an Italian family deli in New Jersey, and learning the value of a dollar, right? I mean, until you earn your first dollar, you have no freaking clue on truly what, price is what you pay, value is what you get, right? Warren Buffett saying. I talk a lot about that in the finance section of my book. So I found very quickly that I don't like authority and I don't like being told how to do things, but I do love to help and create and add value. So what that equates to is I got to go figure out this thing on my own and start my own business, right?
Yeah.
So at a young age, a couple of years after I graduated college, my childhood friend and I started our first real estate business. And we made a ton of mistakes. We almost went broke. We started out broke, so we didn't have anything to lose, to be honest with you. But we made a lot of mistakes in the beginning.
What we say over here, it's not where you start, it's where you finish.
Exactly. But we made a lot of mistakes in the beginning, but we found out very quickly it's who you surround yourself with. And I think that's really the takeaway from this whole interview is surround yourself with the best people. Hands down, and no matter what you're doing, building businesses, family relationships, the people that you surround yourself are what going to make or break everything, especially in business. So we surrounded ourselves with some really top-notch people in our first real estate portfolio. Excuse me. And very quickly became multimillionaires before we turned 30. And I was actually working with Keith Cunningham closely at the time. So he really guided us through and, helped us avoid some major mistakes.
Would it be fair to say he gave you the key to the vault?
The keys to the vault. Yeah, he's a brilliant guy, and he's an older guy now. At the time, he had already made hundreds of millions of dollars, so he'd been around the block, and he told us what to do and what not to do. To be frank with you, so we leveraged off of him and his knowledge and wisdom, and some of the people on the ground in our business. And did really well, had a really good run. By 30, multimillionaires. By 33, 34, almost lost it all in the meltdown of 2008. You remember the Celtic Tiger, the meltdown, the global financial crisis in 2008. Done really well, and then almost lost it all very quickly within about an 18-month time frame between 2008 and 2010. And then so we had to eat some humble pie and, pull up our pants and start working really hard again and building new relationships and continuing to eat humble pie. And fortunately today we're doing very well again. I feel very blessed and fortunate. By no stretch do I have it all figured out. I want to be real clear to the listeners. Anyone that is going to get on their soapbox and tell you they got it all figured out, they're full of shit. You could interview or read people like Richard Branson, who will tell you that he still doesn't have it figured out, right? He's running 300 businesses. He's got family issues. Everyone's got shit, right?
Yep.
So my takeaway and my what I have found in building businesses over the last 20 plus years is get clear on what matters most to you and then build your business around that, right? I'd rather make a lot less money and have a beautiful, happy, healthy marriage, close friends, my children, really healthy, happy relationship with my young children, nurturing myself, which is a big thing. That might sound narcissistic, but it's actually the complete opposite of that. It's one of the most selfless things you can do is take care of yourself so you can actually go back and be a good family man and a good businessman and a good friend to your friends. So all this shit it's all a process, not an event, right? Again, I have not arrived. I don't have it all figured out. But I have been around the block a few times. I've surrounded myself with some really solid people. And I feel like the tools that I share in the book are going to help people. I mean, hands down. They already have. I've been sharing these tools for a couple decades now. And I just put it into a real simple, tangible tool in this book for the reader to be able to go and use themselves in their own lives.
That's really amazing that you've taken your own experience, and this is what I believe what you're saying here is what Tony Robbins calls modeling in collapsing decades into days. So people can, I suppose, almost leverage your experience in your book and how it can apply to their life. Would that be fair to say?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of leverage, Gary. I'm a big fan of leverage, Gerard. I don't like wasting. Time is our most precious commodity, right?
Yep.
You talked about it earlier. It's you bat your eyelashes. I feel like my children are now 3 and turning 6, and I feel like I just married my wife and looking at these kids saying, "What the hell? How the hell did this happen?" Right? I'm 20 plus years into business. Life is precious. I don't take it for granted. And again, going back to that time thing, once you get clear on your priorities, you're going to invest your time accordingly. I think that's the takeaway.
Yes. And for everybody listening, Brian is giving this book away for free. Get over there to Amazon.com right now. Pause the tape. Get to Amazon.com. Get the book, read the book, and come back and listen to the rest of the podcast. But get the book.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that, Gerard. I mean, I'm in the middle of a promo right now on Amazon. They allow every author to share with their community and beyond for a couple days. So right now we're in the middle of that promo. Would love to get it into the hands of your community. I love Ireland. I love your people. I love your country. My mother's from there. I'm headed your way in July. I'm speaking at an event in Israel, and I'm coming through to have a couple of pints and get a couple of waves, and I guess play some golf with Philip, because he sucks at surfing. He feels like we have to play golf so he can try and put
he tries to compensate a little bit.
Yeah. He's a horrible golfer, and he's a horrible surfer.
So, would Philip be looking to lower his handicap when he comes here?
Yeah.
He might get a few tips off Trump. Trump has managed to lower his handicap drastically during his presidency.
Yeah, he's not living in the White House. He's living in West Palm Beach.
Mar-a-Lago, that's where he is.
Yeah.
So, tell me about your passions about surfing, golf, and whatever it is. What are you really passionate about? And how has your passion really made you a better entrepreneur, made you a better family man, and even a better author?
Yeah, so great question. Still got you there? You look like you froze up on me.
Yeah, I'm still here, yep.
Oh, good. I'm happy, yeah. So my passion is the ocean and surfing, as you can probably see in the background there. I got about 20 boards laying around my house and hanging off the walls and driving my wife nuts with all of that. So really what that translates to is I have found a passion in the ocean and surfing. And really, honestly, the back end of that is taking care of myself and self-love, right? So I'm blessed to live in a beautiful area in Florida. I had to surf this morning about a half hour before you and I got on this call. And the reason I bring that up is because really what it's not about the surfing, and it's not about the ocean. It's really about taking care of myself. Mm-hmm. The only way that I can do that is because I've created some freedom of time through the leverage of real estate in the last 20 years. Everyone wants to get rich quick, and everyone wants to get it figured out yesterday. And I get that as an entrepreneur. But I think the message and the takeaway is be patient with yourself, take care of yourself, love on yourself. Again, not in a narcissistic way, but in a very spiritual way, which I talk a lot about in the front half of the book. Faith is a big thing for me. So I am passionate about my faith, and I find a lot of joy in the ocean. I've been doing yoga for 20 years. I meditate every day. That's a big part of my lifestyle. This has nothing to do with religion. I was raised in Roman Catholicism, like we talked about earlier. Yep. I'm not a practicing Catholic. I don't judge it. It just doesn't work specifically for me. I find there's a lot of beauty in it. I see the relationship that my parents have with their, what they call their religion in Catholicism. And I think there's a lot of beauty and discipline in that. But for me, what I'm passionate about is taking care of myself, and so that I can take care of my family, my friends, my business, and really get clear on what matters most to me.
See, I think sometimes if you focus too much on taking care of the business, you're not able to take care of yourself. And if you're not able to take care of yourself, you're not able to take care of the business.
Exactly. That's a great saying. I love that. And then you're not able to take care of your family and be a good father and be a good friend. I mean, I can't tell you how many, as much as I hate to share, and I talk about in the book, how many families I've seen destroyed because people's priorities got out of whack and they were chasing the dollar and chasing things that weren't true priorities to them. They're telling there's a congruency gap between what people tell themselves are their priorities, Jared, and how they're investing their time. And so the book hopefully will help them take a step back. I have a real simple tool that takes about 15 minutes to go through. Excuse me. That helps the people that are going through the book and the tools to get crystal clear on their priorities, and then they can lay out their days however they want. We're all touching these 5 relationships on a daily basis, whether we realize it or not: faith, fitness, family, friends, and finance. Every human being in Ireland and Florida and Europe and Africa are touching those relationships on a daily basis, regardless of age and socioeconomic status. So why not? Let's take a look at those things and then prioritize them, and then we can invest our waking hours accordingly.
So what you just say there about your fate, would that be what Philip Kernan refers to as having a soul set versus this whole area of mindset?
I love his thing around soul set. I
Yes.
remember the first time I heard him talk about it, I thought that's really brilliant because, yeah, we're going from our heart and from our gut. If you're going from your mind all the time and you're just thinking logically, it's not sustainable. And I'm speaking from experience. Again, remember we were multimillionaires and then we almost lost it all. It's because we were all in our head and all in our ego and not thinking through. From our guts, because if I look back on that experience and I really paid attention to my gut, I should have sat on the sidelines for a few years between 2006 when we sold a couple hundred houses out of California at the top of the market. I should have went and traveled and surfed and sat on the sidelines and not been in such a hurry to replace millions of dollars into a new market in Florida, because it almost bankrupted us. I was not listening to my soul like Philip talks about, or my heart or my gut.
Yep.
I was thinking logically, like, shit, I got millions of dollars. I got to replace this capital into a new market as quickly as possible. That's bullshit. I should have went surfing and put the money in a real conservative investment, even a CD, which sounds ridiculous being a real estate investor. But if I did that in 2006 and 2007 and 2008, it would have been a very different experience. I don't have any regrets. But would I do things differently next go around? Absolutely.
There's a little story here about the River Boyne here it's actually close by here to Dublin. It's in County Louth, and there was a successful businessman was walking past, and he seen a guy fishing in the river, and he said to your man fishing in the river, he said, "You know what? When I retire one day, I'm going to be like you, and I'm going to fish in the river." And your man said, "Well, I'm doing it right now."
I love it. Yeah, I've heard that story with a different tweak on it, and
yep.
Yeah, I think you gotta pick your head up and look around and smell the roses, right?
Yes. So,
go ahead.
What was that, Brian?
No, go ahead. I interrupted you.
So, just to finish up really quick, Brian, what are some of the, I suppose, 3 or 5 pieces of advice you would give the millennial generation in terms of maybe finding themselves, having more faith, having a better family, and getting their finances on track?
Yeah, the first thing I would say is start taking care of yourself. So create some rules around what that looks like for you. I'm a big fan of pen to paper. I'm old school. I know the millennials are into the technology, which I totally get and respect, and that's how we're on the phone right now. Take some time for yourself every day. I call it meditation. It has nothing to do with religion. You guys call it whatever you want as millennials. Take some time to get quiet every day, because if you don't, our brains are processing 60 to 80,000 thoughts a day, and that will make you insane if you don't take the time to get quiet on a daily basis and start to become an observer of your thoughts. And I talk about this in the book. So number 1 is take care of yourself. Take some time every day, whatever that looks like for you. Get quiet, go for a walk, go for a surf, play golf, whatever it is in Ireland. Go to the pub. You're probably not going to get quiet in the pub, so maybe don't do that yet.
Sure. Have a few pints and a bit of crack.
Yeah. Hey, look, life is meant to be enjoyed, mate.
Yep.
I mean, look, I totally, we laugh about that, but seriously, if you're not having fun, nothing is sustainable. So number 1 is take care of yourself, have fun with it, be light, be able to forgive yourself quickly. The next thing I want to share is this thing called the Rule of 5. Are you familiar with that? It's a Jim Rohn thing.
It sounds familiar, all right.
Yeah. So I talk about it in the book, and especially for millennials, because of where you're at in your life. You're going through all kinds of changes, transition, starting businesses, coming out of college, maybe getting married, falling in love, starting a family, whatever it looks like for you. So the Rule of 5 is this, and it comes from Jim Rohn, and I put my own tweak on it. The Rule of 5 is you will become the sum average of the 5 people that you spend.
Yes.
Yeah, and it sounds overly simple, Jared, and it sounds like, duh, I know that, right? But I call bullshit. Until you sit down with a pen and paper and write down those 5 people and spend about a couple hours thinking about who am I really spending, and you don't even need a couple hours. You can figure out real quick with a pen and paper, write down the names of the 5 people you're spending the most time with. And if you can look at that piece of paper and spend some time on each one of those relationships and ask yourself the question, do I feel more energized and pumped and positive and feel good after I think about that person and spend time with them? Or do I feel drained and shitty and negative after a conversation or having a beer with them or having a game with them or having a date with them, whatever it is? And that will start to create some healthy boundaries. And that is, I mean, that's the biggest takeaway I can give, not only millennials, but anyone in the world. I don't care if you're 3, 21, or 85. Really take a long, hard look at who are you investing your time with. I talked earlier about in our interview about time is all we got, right?
Yeah.
So if that is our most precious commodity, then why are we not really thinking about who are we investing those 16 precious waking hours every day with? And when you go through this exercise, I carry those 5 names around on a piece of paper in my wallet, and I go back to it and look at it. And I'm at a point in my life where those relationships are real solid and stable, but hey, look, life happens, things change. Always go back and really glance at that list and ask yourself, do I want to be the sum average of those people? Because you're going to start to walk like them. You're going to talk like them. You're going to surf like them. You're going to play golf like them. You're going to laugh like them. And if you don't want to do that, then you really need to start creating some healthy boundaries in those relationships.
That's why I hang around with some millionaires.
Yeah, and you know, I talk about finance a lot, and money is a phenomenal tool, but it's just one part of the 5 Fs. I want to make, this movement of conscious capitalism. I don't know if you're familiar with that.
Yes.
If you're not, Google it and take a look at it. I am a capitalist, but I'm a conscious capitalist, and I want to make as much money as possible with this movement and with my businesses and with the real estate so that I can turn around and help as many people as possible. It's not so I can drive Ferraris and have my own plane. Some of that's fine. That's not really what it's about for me. It's really about I want to make a shit ton of money so I can help a shit ton of people.
Yes. Well, Brian, that was a fantastic interview. I really felt that it came from the soul, and everything was it was so authentic. It was so delivered beautifully. It was an amazing story to listen to. Some amazing insights in there. Thanks very much for being on the show, Brian. It was an honor.
Thank you so much. And for the free download, to make it easy for you guys, just brianscrone.com is my name.com. And I'm pretty active on social media and Facebook. That's how you and I came together. So you can hopefully share that link with your community. It's going to stop on – the free download is going to stop on Friday this week, so take advantage of it. And then obviously I'd love to have you, purchase the book after that.
Perfect. Everybody, Brian Scrone, brianscrone.com. Go follow him on Facebook, but more importantly, go get the goddamn book.
Hey, we'll see you in July. We'll have to have a pint.
Oh, absolutely. A pint or 10.
There you go.
Thanks for listening, everybody.
Thank you.